Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to Practice Best Practice Artist Workshop, Grant Writing for Artist Workshop. I'm Den Santoro, and I'm the owner of S&G Project Gallery, and I'll be hosting the workshop tonight. I want to start off by thanking our partners and our funders, Rockland Charitable Trust and the New Bedford Creative, and our partners, New Bedford Art Museum, Artworks, New Bedford Co-Creative Center, New Bedford Creative, New Bedford Economic Development Council, and the Whaling National Historic Park, and S&G Project Gallery. And we also want to thank especially Mass Cultural Council for creating the workshop you're about to see. This is our first workshop that had to be moved online because of the coronavirus. So please bear with us if we have any odd tweaks or hiccups. And a few notes before we begin for everyone. These will be posted in the chat afterwards. If you have questions during the workshop, please type them into the chat. Lindsay Compton from the National Park and Margot Sonia of New Bedford Creative and I will be monitoring them. When we select your question, we will call you out and ask you to unmute yourself so you can ask your question out loud. This will also give you the ability to do follow-up questions if needed. There will also be a Q&A at the end, which will run the same way. We suggest that you put your Zoom in speaker mode rather than gallery mode, so the speaker is the most prominent thing, and it will also help when things go to screen sharing. We will have a resource document that MCC has created. We'll be sharing that in the chat, and we'll share it again at the end. I hope that you've liked us on Facebook and signed up for our email list. Our website will be coming soon, and we'll announce that on those platforms. So, let's see. Oops, I missed something. Also at the end, we'll have a short online survey, which you can take right here in the meeting, and we'll put that up near the end of the session. Feedback is very important to us, so please fill it out. Also, you can add comments at the end towards in the chat, or you can email them to contact@practicebestpractice.com. We like feedback, suggestions for workshops, etc. So without further ado, let me introduce our presenters for tonight. Both of our presenters are staff at the Mass Cultural Council. Mina Kim is Program Officer for Community Initiatives, and Kelly Bennett is Exhibitions Curator, Program Officer of Artist Fellowships. So now over to Mina and Kelly.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. So I'm Kelly Bennett, and I'm a program officer in the Artist Fellowships Department. And Mina?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see your faces or to feel your presence for those who don't have their videos on. But I'm the program officer for the Community Initiative, and I serve Bristol County as well as Essex and Hampshire counties.
So I wanted to give a brief overview of who we are, the Mass Cultural Council. We're a state art agency, and we're primarily funded through appropriations from the state legislature. And we receive a little bit of federal funding through the National Endowment for the Arts. We're governed by a council that is appointed by the governor. It's a 19-member council, and they approve the grant recommendations that go through our jury and panel process. Our budget last year, just to give you a sense of the scale, was about $20 million. We had about 25 programs for artists and schools and nonprofits and community. And as an agency, we really believe in the power of culture. And we know that it lifts the human spirit. And as COVID-19 has demonstrated how vital culture is to our basic mental and physical and spiritual well-being. So I just want to thank you all for the work that you do. I hope that this evening we're able to help you advance your work in some capacity. And thank you for sharing in the belief in the power of art. So I'm going to take a moment with the technology and screen share something for you. Okay. So I'm going to exit my full screen. And I want to screen share this. Okay. Our main website is massculturalcouncil.org. That's our homepage. And the reason I want to let you know of that URL is because at the bottom of that page is this key thing called email sign up. And I would urge you all to consider signing up for our email newsletters, because they will let you know of upcoming grant programs and other situations that might be of interest to you. It's quite simple. You just click on the link, give your email address, and then you can choose which e-newsletter you want to receive. Artist News is a monthly newsletter. Power of Culture newsletter is the agency-wide. Creative Youth News is for people who work with youth, and then Community Initiative News is for artists working in communities. Great resource for you. When COVID hit, we were nearing the end of our fiscal year. So we were able to reposition some money to create a relief program for individual artists. Back in April, we did a survey. I don't know if some of you participated, but in April, we did a survey of both individuals and organizations. And from the individual point of view, about 2,300 artists answered the survey. And what we found, that even back then, was over $16 million had been lost just in early April from work that you all do. So that's an average of about $7,000 per person back then. We know it's devastating. I understand that we were limited in what we could offer at the time. 272 artists did receive a $1,000 award through that COVID fund. Currently, we do not know what our budget is. It has been delayed. The state budget is for FY21 paused. And so I can't give you a specific timeline or budget for another relief program or the Artist Fellowship program. It's just where things stand right now, on pause. But what I would say is, when I told you to sign up for that Artist e-News, that will give you information if there is money repositioned into another emergency fund for individuals. And what it will also do is tell you when the Artist Fellowship applications become live on our website and what the award levels will be. Because currently, as I said, I don't know, because we don't have a budget yet. So I'm going to show you what you would need to know in advance in preparation for the day in which we're able to launch the next round of fellowships, and I'll explain a bit about that. Before we begin, Mina and I work in different departments. I work in the artist department where we give out artist fellowships, and Mina is administering local cultural council grants. They're two different things. And what I want to say is the fellowships, which I'm going to talk to you about, provide artists for work that has been completed or in progress. You don't need to write a budget or proposal. The fellowship is all about your work sample in whatever discipline you're working in. Whereas the local cultural council grant will entail an artist to write a proposal and a budget. So staying with the two programs, they've both been at the council since 1974. They are core programs for individuals. And I would encourage you to apply if you never have. The fellowship program is very competitive, but if you don't try, you won't get one. And I've seen so much work over the years that I've been at the council from artists receiving fellowships, and it's unrestricted money. So you can use the funds for whatever it is you need, whether it's to pay rent, finish a project by buying materials. It's called unrestricted, and that also means that it's a very competitive program. It's a very desirable award for an artist to receive. So on the Mass Cultural Council website, under artists, there's a fellowship program, and you can see it says application process. When we go to the application process, it's going to tell you that there are different discipline categories in different years. And in the most recent year, we awarded a little over $600,000 to artists. There were 37 fellowships at $15,000 each, and 34 finalists at $1,000 each. And the categories will rotate every year. You can see there's crafts, dramatic writing, sculpture, installation, genres. Those are what's on cue for this year, as well as film and video and music composition and photography. And in past years, we'll have poetry and fiction and traditional arts, drawing and printmaking, 12 to 13 categories. So it's a broad range of literary, visual, and performing arts. Now that you know that I can't show you the actual guidelines because we don't have a budget and the program is paused. What I do want to show you is an application prior to this from last year, which will give you a sense of what it would look like. And by the way, if you have intermittent Wi-Fi service, or you don't have access to a computer, the application is online. And I want you to know that I'm available, as well as my colleagues in the artist department, to help shepherd you through the application process. Please do not let a lack of Wi-Fi or a computer stop you. You'll have my contact information at the end of this session, but I have helped numerous artists apply to the fellowship program that either don't have the technical capacity, they don't have a computer, they lack Wi-Fi access at home, or working with a computer is just too difficult. So know that we're here to help you apply wherever you are in your process. So this here says, read the program guidelines below. And that's always the best thing to do. Read the program guidelines. I'm going to go to painting as an example. In the painting category, it would tell an applicant that you're going to have to apply through a site called callforentry.org. Some of you may be familiar with online sites like Submittable. Cafe is another one. It aggregates applications, and it allows artists, once they register for free, to apply to different calls nationally and internationally. We happen to use this one called callforentry.org. And what the application requires in the painting category, it's saying 5 JPEG images. And they have to be 1,200 pixels wide or high. That's what the requirement is for the application, and I would expect that would continue moving in this fiscal year. If you are a literary applicant, typically it's 25 pages or fewer. You can include a single work. For instance, if you're writing a full-length novel, you can submit a full work, but you have to submit the first 25 pages. Or if you write shorter pieces, short stories, you could submit up to 4 works. Again, though, you could not exceed 25 pages. And you would definitely want to keep the 8.5 by 11 standard size, no oversize when you upload, as well as fonts. It's going to ask you for things that are easy for jurors to read. So it's double spaced, Times or Helvetica, not a crazy party font that's really hard to read, in 12 point. You would also number your pages and then be able to upload your manuscript as a doc or a docx or a PDF or an RTF. For artists who work in time-based works like choreography or sculpture, installation, new genres, maybe you have a time-based piece, you can submit up to 20 minutes of video, and the maximum file size would be 1 gigabyte. A lot of information that I'm giving you, all of this will be on the website, but essentially you have to follow the specs for the work sample, or the online application will reject your work sample. It just won't go through. So I've clicked on the call for entry site as an applicant. And if you click on it, callforentry.org, and you scroll down it, it's going to ask you to either log in or find calls. You can't log in unless you first register. And you can see, I've scrolled too far, you can see that they have 4 artists sign up and apply. So this is something you would have to do with whatever online site is collecting the applications. You would click on the artist sign up link, and it's very standard information. It would be asking you to register yes to the terms and conditions, which is always at the bottom. I'm not going to read it now. It's a bunch of information. And then it will ask you, say, yes, I agree. And then it's going to ask you to fill out your name and address and create a username and password. Once you do that, you'll be able to successfully log in and out at will of this call for entry site. I already have a username and password, so I'm going to log in. I'm not a robot. I'm going to log in. When you find these online sites, they're designed differently, but with this one, I'm going to take you right to the portfolio tab. And the reason for that is you can see the site has told you applying is a 3-stage process. All steps must be completed to submit. And the first step is the My Portfolio tab. My Portfolio is the place, the online place you're going to take all of your image files or sound files if you're a music composer, or whatever work sample you have, and you're going to place it into this portfolio. It's a holding place. So when we go to it, let's click on it, My Portfolio. It's going to ask you to upload media. So, and you can see below, these are some things that I've already uploaded. I'm going to click on the upload media, and it's going to ask you what type of media. Let's do image. And then it's going to ask you to choose a file. So again, you can see there's 3 choices. Image, I'm going to choose a file. And let's just pick an image. I've highlighted it. From my computer, I click open. And right here, you can see that the site has now accepted it because that was the file name. It's not showing up yet as a thumbnail because it still wants you to type in the typical things like the title. So let's just do test. The medium, let's just say oil on canvas. The height, let's just say 16. Width, let's just say 14. Depth, let's just say it's an inch. Price, let's say it's worth $10,000. Year completed for this fellowship program, it has to be work within the last 4 years. So it can be a work in progress, but it can't be a work from, say, 2006. So let's choose 2019. Let's say the discipline is drawing, just art in public places, you can discard. You can write an optional description for the work if you want, and then you add it. And what will happen is this little thing that's spinning right now shows you that it was successfully added to the portfolio. If that little gear keeps spinning and then you get an error message, it may tell you that your image was the wrong size. So what do? Well, you would have to look at your image size. And if you don't have Photoshop, I'm going to recommend the best free software that I found, which is this. It's called paint.net. And it's a downloadable site. It's pretty easy to use. And you can open an image. And let's just grab one. And you can go to image, go to oh gosh, Kelly. View, image, resize. If you go to resize, image and resize, this free software will show you the pixel dimensions right here. And the fellowship program said it has to be at least 1,200 pixels wide or high. This image exceeds 1,200 pixels, so that's fine, because the online site will reconfigure your image down proportionally to 1,200, wide or high. What it won't do is it will not accept an image that is less than 1,200 pixels wide or high. So paint.net, it's a very straightforward site, but it's very useful if your photo editor in the computer that you're using does not have a function that will show you what your pixel dimensions are. Okay. So in this portfolio tab, I've gone back to the cafe site, and you can return actions. Let's return to the portfolio. And now you see that that image we uploaded is right here. You can edit it. You can duplicate it. Modify it means edit in their nomenclature in case you made a mistake. But essentially, this is where you would upload the work that you would want to apply to. Once you've uploaded your images, and this is a place where I can help people, particularly if they struggle and their images get bounced back, you can email me an image and I'll try to diagnose it for you to see why it might not be loading properly. But usually it's because the image size is less than 1,200 pixels wide or high. When the applications are available, in the past, you would go to this tab, apply to calls. And you could search the apply to calls by state. So we would search by Massachusetts. And at the end of this list, we would filter and hit enter, and then up will come all of the Massachusetts listings. So this is where you would find a listing for the Mass Cultural Council Artist Fellowship once it's live. Since it's not live right now because of COVID, I can show you what a past application would look like. So this tab, My Cafe Entries, will show you past applications that you may have started or applied with. So let me look at something from maybe 2016. And back to the entry. The application itself for a fellowship is really simple, really straightforward. It is your name and address, your email. Are you a legal resident of Massachusetts for 2 years? If you are, and you're not in a directly related degree granting program, you are eligible to apply, okay? If you are, you can also apply if you're a collaboration. In this application for crafts, as a test application, I said I was not applying collaboratively. If you were, you could write your collaborator's first and last name. The application is going to ask you for a resume. And the resumes are not used in the review process. They are used by staff. They're a very useful tool for us in terms of promotion. If you receive a fellowship or you're a finalist, it gives us some background information in preparation for press information. And it also helps us in some instances to determine eligibility with residency. I would say don't fret about the resume, but definitely fret about your work samples, because that's what the jury is going to see, your work samples. They're not going to see your resume, only the staff is. You may add a work sample description, which is 1,200 characters. A work sample description is not an artist statement. They're two different things. A work sample description, which is optional, is something that you can provide to the jury that augments the work samples that you're submitting. So for instance, if I was submitting in crafts five pots, and there was something about the firing process or how they were made, I may want to add a little bit more information in the work sample description. It's there for you, but don't feel that it's necessary. If you want to, like I said, enhance your application with additional text, it's there. And then at the bottom of the application, what you'll see is all of the thumbnails that exist in your portfolio tab. And you will click which 5 you would want to submit. So these have already been clicked because it's a prior application. But that basically, that's it. That's the whole application. Whether it's a collaboration, you add a resume, a work sample description, and then the work samples. So it's really important when you're choosing work samples to not only have the specs right, but to consider how you document your work. So for instance, you want to make sure that your images are shot properly, that you don't have excess extraneous visual information. You want to have that the images are all clear from the sides. I'll show you what I mean. Just close this out. Bear with me, people.
Kelly,
So,
we
yeah.
have a question from Madge Evers. Madge, could you unmute yourself for a minute and ask your question?
Sure, but Kelly pretty much answered it. I just was wondering about the work sample description and how important it was, but I think that you covered that, so thank you.
Yeah, and Madge, you know, sometimes I've been at this job for a long time. I've sat on a lot of juries, and I can tell you that if the work is challenging, it will help a jury to understand the work better if there's some text. particularly if your work is conceptual. You know, if I was submitting one of these, let me just grab one. If I was submitting, you know, a painting like this, I might not have a description because it's, you know, there it is. But if it was, say it was a plein air painting, I might want to say that. It just depends on what it is that you're doing. It just depends. What I did want to say is on documenting work, in the past, people had to often hire photographers. It was very costly, and that's changed somewhat now. People can shoot their own work, but you really want to make sure you don't do things like this and submit it, which is don't use an image where you're seeing extraneous information, right? You want to make sure that you don't have other things around it. You want to have it cropped. And also see how yellow the back wall is? That's supposed to be white. So there's a real color shift in that work. And anytime you document your work and you say it's good enough isn't good enough. You want it to be.
Excuse me, Kelly.
Great. Yeah.
I apologize. This is Lindsay Compton. We can't see the images you're discussing.
You can't.
We cannot.
Okay. Let's see what happened here.
I think you might have to stop share and then go in again, because you probably only have it sharing the screen you selected.
Okay. Bear with me, people. Let's see. I'm sorry. Let me try again. Can you see that image now?
Yes.
Okay. That was the image I was talking about, where you want to avoid having that color shift, that yellow. You really want to get the whites right. You want to not have any extraneous information in the back when you're uploading images. I'm just going to move on quickly. That was documenting work. Some people will ask whether or not you want to have work from a series or have kind of a broader range, depending upon how you may, you know, write or you may compose. That's a hard question. I would say that most artists will submit work that is from similar, because there's only 5 images or 25 pages or 20 minutes, that kind of thing. If it's very far ranging, it might be hard for a juror to visually remember all the work if it's so disparate in this kind of situation. And let me add that the jury review is anonymous, which means the jurors are only looking at the work samples and the work sample descriptions and the titles and the years and the size and the medium. They don't know who you are, where you live, any identifying information. They just see the work. And then the last thing I would say is, because it's a competitive program, please reapply if you don't get funding. It's a good thing to apply because other people are seeing your work, and although you may not get the award, there may be some ancillary benefit from a presenter seeing your work and then inquiring after the fact of who was that artist, and we're able to provide that information to them. So anyway, I encourage you all. Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Sure.
It's always amazing to me how little I know about other departments' processes sometimes, even though we sit in the same office space. So that was very informative for me. So I'm just going to share my screen. I really wanted to go see these digital installations, but it just didn't happen, unfortunately. But someday soon, I'll visit New Bedford again. Um, hi again, everyone. I'm Mina Kim. I'm the program officer for the Community Initiative at the Mass Cultural Council. In my portion of the presentation, I'm just going to talk mostly about the Community Initiative, focusing on the Local Cultural Council program. So we have revised the Local Cultural Council grant cycle. So there's some new key dates that I want to make sure you all are aware of. And then I'll briefly go through the Smart Simple application portal. The application isn't going to open until October 1st this year. And so I figure between now and October 1st, most people could probably use like a refresher. And we do have another recording that goes through the application in more detail. And the other thing is we're also currently updating a lot of our resources. So we'll probably make a new video, which I'll make sure to share with the New Bedford creative folks. And then I do want to go over some grant writing tips. The thing to keep in mind with the Local Cultural Council grants is that they're actually administered by the local cultural councils. So I will go into this some more, but because they're administered by each local cultural council, it's always good to check in with your local cultural council that you're applying to figure out what they're looking for in the applications. But what I'll do today is share some stuff that has come up in my conversations with local cultural councils as well as with some grantees. And then at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions about the community initiative, the local cultural council, and yeah, and you know, like while I'm speaking, if anyone has like specific questions around grant writing or the local cultural council, feel free to put that in the chat. And I do see some stuff coming through in the chat, so I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So as Kelly said, the Mass Cultural Council comprises different departments and working groups. So there are 7 working groups which the Community Initiative is a part of. And the Community Initiative includes the Local Cultural Council program, the Cultural District Initiative, and the Festivals program. So a couple of years ago, we decided that instead of keeping these 3 programs separate from one another, it made a lot of sense to consolidate and combine them so we could better leverage our shared resources and also, you know, help reach constituencies that overlap between our respective programs. So this is just a brief description of each of the programs. So the cultural districts, they are really, they're state designated cultural districts to allow communities to create state sponsored cultural districts to stimulate arts, new arts and cultural activity and also attract creative businesses. The Local Cultural Council program really supports community-based programming. And then the festivals program is for festival organizers and programmers to support creative expression in public spaces. So you can see a snapshot of all of our great community staff members. So Lisa Simmons is the overarching program manager of the initiative. Luis Cotto is the cultural district's manager. And then you'll see the program officers listed on the right side. We have Timothy Pham, Ricky Guillaume, and Veronica Ramirez Martel. And so I encourage you, I don't know how many folks here are from New Bedford or how many are from outside, but we each have different assignments throughout the state. So we have like 2 to 3 regions. So I'll make sure to share this presentation with Dan so that he can include that in the resources packet. And if you have questions about LCCs in different areas outside of Bristol County, you can refer to this guide and find the contact information of your program officer. So what do local cultural councils do? So local cultural councils are known for awarding an annual grant program through the Local Cultural Council program, but they also create original programs to address local cultural needs. And in order to inform this, they conduct community engagement and also as a way to understand the local context. And they serve as a resource and connector for the local cultural community. And then, of course, advocate for arts and culture at various levels, so the local level, regional, and state levels. And just to give you a sense of Mass Cultural Council funding, so in FY20, funding for Bristol and Plymouth counties combined was a little over $685,000. And in total, in fiscal year 20, we granted out a little over $4 million for the entire state. So this is the revised timeline that we've created for fiscal year 21. And so this timeline is contingent on the state budget being in place by mid-November. And so usually the grant cycle opens up on September 1st, and grant applications are due October 15th. But we've essentially moved things back by 1 month. And so during August and in October, this is when you'll see LCCs publicizing the availability of the grant program. They also need to post their council priorities on their council profiles, which I'll show you in a minute, by October 1st. And the application, which is on Smart Simple, also opens October 1st. In November, the due date for the applications is November 16th, and that's a Monday. And then during December through February is when LCCs will hold voting meetings to evaluate the applications that come in. They'll also send denial notifications. And applicants who receive denial notifications have 15 days from the date of the notification to request reconsideration. And that reconsideration request actually comes to us at the state agency. So because we have the 15-day reconsideration period, the denial letters go out first, and then award letters are sent afterward. So in February, maybe early March is when you would expect to hear whether you receive the award or not. In terms of program eligibility, so in terms of the time frame, there is an 18-month window. So for instance, even though the deadline for this year is November 16th, you can apply to apply for funding for retroactively. So let's say that you had something that took place July 30th. You could apply for funding for that project that took place in July. And so applicants may also apply for projects that have happened, but it's important to know that funding is not guaranteed. Also, local councils are authorized to establish a smaller window of eligibility. And so it's important to look at their council priorities, which is the place where you'll find this information, because there are some councils that don't allow for retroactive funding. So I will show you. Okay, so before we go into the council profile, just some grant restrictions. So funding cannot be used for the purchase of food or beverages. Also, individual students cannot apply for scholarships. However, if you're creating a scholarship program that serves a broader constituency, then it's up to the LCC whether or not they would like to consider that type of scholarship program. It's just individual scholarships that aren't eligible. And so you can find the profile for every local cultural council on Mass-Culture. And this is where you'll see the priorities and also contact information in case you have questions. And in terms of so let's actually, I'm going to go to the site so that you can see it. All right, so this is www.mass-culture.org. And so you'll see LCC members and then applicants. So you want to go here. And there's information on the guidelines, the application process. And then here is where you would want to find your local cultural council. So let's just do New Bedford. So here you can see that there's a brief description of the council with the contact information and the mailing address. This is just a link to our state program guidelines if you want to read over the guidelines. And then this is really important. So we leave a lot of decision making up to each local cultural council because we know that they have a better awareness and understanding of their local community needs because they're on the ground in your communities. And so local cultural councils will take into consideration things that are happening in their community, input from community surveys and other types of engagement, and then they will have a discussion around what they want to prioritize for each new grant cycle. So in terms of New Bedford, you can see that they have some specifics when it comes to what they're seeking for. And this, remember that this is fiscal year 20, not the upcoming, not the fiscal year 21. So this will be updated. So, so they do have their own specific set of criteria, and they even have required attachments that the New Bedford Cultural Council requires for the application. This doesn't have the Smart Simple link right now because the application hasn't opened yet, but this is where you would find the link to Smart Simple. And then if you're curious about past funding, you can find information about which programs receive funding from the Cultural Council in fiscal year 20. So I just want to go back to council priorities and show you how priorities can change or are different between councils. So that's New Bedford. Here's North Attleboro. So again, you can see North Attleboro has a logo. So every council has different priorities. And for North Attleboro, they actually allowed, at least last year, for additional supplemental materials to be submitted to the council for consideration. Also, you can see here that there's a limit of 3 consecutive years of receiving, for the same project, to be submitted for the LCC for funding. And so there are a few councils that will, sometimes prioritize first-time applicants or prioritize, visual art projects. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then I'm just gonna go into Smart Simple, but I'm going to first sign in. All right, so okay. So this is Smart Simple, and first-time applicants need to go through the eligibility quiz. But if you're a repeat applicant, you just sign in using the login that you used from the previous year. And again, we do have a more detailed tutorial on Smart Simple. And for today, I'm just going to just show you all the different sections. And if you have questions about the different sections, let me know, and we can definitely discuss it as I'm going through these pages. So this is just the applicant information, and it's always good practice to hit save. And then project information, which just goes over the title and some basic information about the demographics that it's serving. So this is where you talk about your project. And so there's a summary of the proposed project, who the target audience is, what the cost of participation is for attendees, and how it provides public benefit for the local community. And then the section is for describing the qualifications of the partners or the people involved in the project. And then more on partnership. And then this is around the plan, the promotion and communication of the project to your target audience. And so you'll see that 900 characters is about a little over 400 words. So this isn't like a long application where you're expected to go into deep detail, but therefore it's really good to be very targeted with your message. And we'll talk about that towards the end with the grant writing tips. The next section is the budget overview. And so in this section, you're going to, in the section, you're going to show the projected expenses for your project, the projected income, any additional income that's expected. And the important thing here is to show that your projected expenses and income balance. And the section actually won't save if the two don't match up. So we have that. And then below is a narrative of your budget. So this section is really to assure the council that you have a plan just in case certain sources of income don't come through, and is to show that you have a solid sense of what is needed to carry out your program related to the budget. And then supplemental materials. So you can upload up to 3 PDFs, and each PDF has a maximum of 3 pages. And then the rest is just signing off and submitting. So that's Smart Simple. And I'm just going to go back to my presentation. Okay, so we went through that. The application auto saves, and you will be sent automatic reminders a couple weeks out from the deadline and 1 week prior to the deadline. And this is the site. So this will all be in the slide deck that I share with Den afterward. And so you can see this is the applicant quiz, eligibility quiz. So grant writing tips. I am curious. I don't know if anyone's put anything in the chat, but I am curious what sort of questions people have, especially if you've applied for an LCC grant and there was something that maybe wasn't as clear as it could have been in terms of like the questions that the application asks. So if anyone has anything they'd like to share, certainly please share that. But the tips that we have are to start early. So everyone is people, especially like creatives, you wear multiple hats, and everyone is so busy and so involved and so passionate about supporting their communities and also practicing their art. But we really do recommend to start as early as possible. Council priorities, again, that's really important when considering how to frame your project, and to even find out if your project is eligible and will be prioritized by the local cultural council. So again, please use mass-culture to look up each local cultural council that you plan to apply to. And you can apply to as many local cultural councils as you want, except it's important to note that each local cultural council has their own priorities and sort of their own thoughts on what they would like to see. And so many local cultural councils, in terms of public benefit, will ask that projects take place within their community, or be in proximity to their community. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you have an existing proposal from a different application, please don't just copy and paste, because the proposal might not be relevant or appropriate for the local cultural council application. So just definitely you can use existing proposals to modify so that it fits for the local cultural council program. But there have been times when, for instance, someone submitted something to the Chamber of Commerce, and it was really more about economic revitalization, and not so much about support for creative expression, for example, or creative or cultural development. And so there's definitely an overlap between, there's so much interconnectedness between economic development and cultural development. And so if you're going for that angle, it's just good to kind of frame that in a way that speaks to the cultural community. So looking out to local cultural council members. So as I mentioned, every LCC kind of makes their own decisions and sets up their own parameters for their grant evaluation process. And so feel free to reach out to a local cultural council if you have any questions. Reach out to potential partners. So if you think that you want to involve another entity or another individual, definitely reach out to them earlier, because there are LCCs who will ask that you provide a letter of support from potential partners, in particular venue hosts. And so most LCCs really value seeing a letter of support from the organization that's going to host the space for the project. Also, create a realistic budget. LCCs, their budget, each allocation for each LCC is determined by a state aid formula. And so it's reverse property values and population. So lower property values, higher populations receive a larger percentage of the money. And keep in mind that every LCC has a different budget when it comes to their annual allocation. So if you submit something that is over, I don't know, $150,000, you make sure, it's possible that the LCC will consider it, but you just have to make sure that you lay out very clearly what the expenses are for the project and what your sources of additional income are or will be, so that they know that there is a plan budget-wise for that project. The other thing is to highlight the relevance and social impact of your proposed project. And related to that, the last bullet point, I would really recommend focusing on the goal or intention of your project and then connecting it to your mission, whether it's connecting it to your mission as an organization or as an individual. And the last two are important, particularly when it comes to council priorities and also public benefit. LCCs will really look for projects that have the broadest public benefit. And it's good to kind of lay out how your project serves the public, and not just, the general public, but serves the public that reside or work or live in that particular municipality. And so again, most councils will have this information in their council priorities. So I see are there any questions?
if you have questions for Kelly, type them in and we will call you out, okay?
And I see Margot put in the chat that the New Bedford Cultural Council will soon release a survey to inform fiscal year 21. And I want to add to that, that at the Mass Cultural Council, we surveyed LCC applicants, so both denied and awarded from fiscal year 20, to also help us inform what the LCC landscape looks like at this moment. And that is something that we'll definitely share with the LCCs as a way to help them further develop their council priorities.
Once again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will call them out. Doesn't look like we have questions. You've covered it all. So do you have more that you would like to present or discuss at this point, Kelly and Mina?
Yeah, I'd like to share a couple of resources that also might be of interest to artists. Let's see. Let me just hang on a second. Let me get back to screen share.
Okay, and I'm going to share out that file of resources that MCC provided one more time here. And remember,
Okay.
there will be a survey in a little bit that we'd really like you to fill out.
Let's just see.
Any,
Bear with me.
sure.
While
All right, I just shared that document. Anyone can download it from the chat.
Beautiful.
We have a question from Laura Simcoe. Laura, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, does the Mass Cultural Council have their LCCs assigned yet, the amount of money? I know that you said that the other, let's see. The other grant didn't, but does the Mass Cultural Grant have their money assigned yet?
So right now, because there needs to be further discussion around the budget at the legislature, we do not know what our budget is for FY21.
We also have a question from Lisa Echeverria. If you'd unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, yes, I have a question about artist statements. I've never written one, and I was just wondering, you know, what I should be thinking about as I start to draft one.
In my experience, brief, honest, and clear language. I would really write in the voice of the work that you do. And I have seen artist statements that are sentence long, and I've seen them many pages. And really, it's an extension of you to augment your work. And there's a lot of examples online of how to. And as a visual artist, I find writing them painful. It's not a pleasurable experience, but in the end, when I did do one and peeled it away, I found that I was able to arrive at something that reflected who I thought I was as an artist. So really, it's in my experience in sitting in juries over the years, it's the work. The work, the work, the work is the thing. The work is going to be the thing.
Thank you.
Sure. Can you all see this screen I have up right now that says an online showcase of artist fellows? Can you see that?
Yes, it's available. It's visible.
Okay, so this is a tool that we have. It's an online gallery of past awardees in the different disciplines that we offer. So there's a drop-down menu here that you could search. I think we started this gallery in 2003. But essentially you can search any of the disciplines. Let's just pick photography, or you can search by a grant year. And what we'll do is it'll show you randomly work by photographers that have either been fellows or finalists in the fellowship program. And it'll give you a sense of, this is Rania, an amazing, amazing photographer. But it'll give you a sense of how they were thinking about their work and how they grouped their images or their audio samples or video samples. And I find it's a good tool for applicants to look at. Another thing you may want to know is we have something called Higher Culture, higherculture.org, and it is a free online website for finding a job. Nonprofits in Massachusetts, cultural nonprofits, come here to post employment opportunities. So if you're looking for employment, and this site is about to be revised, but if you're looking for employment in a particular region, let's just do Eastern, you can search by category and it'll show you what jobs are available, what the organization is, and when it was posted. It's a very good tool if you're looking for employment. And then finally, I would say, if something occurs to you after the fact, tomorrow, a week, 2 weeks from now, or even when we launch the fellowship application, we have a staff list on our website. Feel free to reach out to any of us in the artist department. Our contact information is listed on our website. I primarily work with the visual artists and choreography. My colleague Dan, he works with the literary artists, music and film and video. And our other colleague, Maggie, is a state folklorist. She deals predominantly with traditional artists. And just a mention on that, the Traditional Artists Fellowship is different than all of the other categories, whereby that's the one category that's not reviewed anonymously. In that instance, the jurors are going to know who the artist is because they need to know how that tradition was passed on. They need to know what their standing is within the community. So it's very important in those instances of where you have a tradition being passed down from generation to generation, say, boat building, that kind of thing. It's important within the tradition itself, which is very different than learning studio art in a university setting. So traditional arts is not anonymously reviewed. And any one of us is available to ask any questions that you have during regular business hours. We do check our voicemail. And that's all I have for the research. Oh, no, it's not. There's one more beautiful one that you should know about, which is our blog called Artsay. And this is designed predominantly for individual artists. And every Tuesday we'll publish opportunities that come across our desk, which means it could be calls to artists for exhibition opportunities. It could be webinars, reminding people to register to vote, but every Tuesday is a published opportunities listing. We also have on Artsake tools for creative space classifieds if you're looking for places that you need studio space, they're listed here. And then if you're looking for rehearsal space, you can also go to spacefindermass.org and search there as well. And then if you're a performing artist, you can go to creativeground.org and you can search and look for artists, performing artists. You can also create your own profile. So those are resources. If you forget, contact me. I'm happy to point them in your direction again.
And just because we mentioned the budget, Mass Creative has our partner, Mass Creative, has some great resources if you'd like to stay plugged in and up to date on the budget process. So August is pretty quiet usually, but we expect there to be a lot of activity to pick up starting September. And one of the links, the second one that the first link that I sent you, you can see Mass Creative's bi-weekly virtual policy and action updates. So they have all of their previously recorded updates, and you can also register for upcoming updates. And these are really quick. None of them have been over 20 minutes, but you kind of get a full briefing on what's happening in terms of the legislature and also arts and culture budget processes. And the second link is an action alert around the economic development bond bill. And so the Senate and the House put forward different provisions, and in total, they're recommending $31 million through bond funding that will support artists and cultural organizations. So I'm sure most have already seen these, but I encourage you to take a look. And there's also an embedded link there where you can write to your legislators asking for their support.
We have a couple more questions. First, Rhonda Fazio has a couple, so unmute yourself, Rhonda, and ask. And while you're doing that, if you look in the chat, you will see some links that have been provided by people, including to our last workshop, which included writing for fellowships and a thing about artist statements. So some of you asked about artist statements. I would encourage you to go watch that. It's available online. It'll eventually be available in our space as well. Go ahead, Rhonda.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I do have a question about the LCC grant question where it asks if you've applied to other local cultural councils. And I'm always stumped at that question. I never know what to put, and I just put NA. Because I do apply to all the other ones, but I don't know what to say.
So if you apply to other local cultural councils, then you should put them in that section. If you apply to, I don't remember right now if there's a character limit for that box, but if there is, you can group it by regions if your LCCs happen to fall within like a certain region. But you and I can talk more about that, Rhonda, if you want. Over the phone, but basically it's just to let them know what other councils you're reaching out to, and it's not really a part of the evaluation process at all. It's just to let them know what other councils you're considering, and so that also goes into your budget section too, because that's additional income or expected additional income, and so and for folks who apply to multiple councils, usually they're not asking for funding for one project, is to bring that one project to multiple locations. And so it's treated as like a standalone project for that local cultural council.
And I have one more additional question. How is the crossover of the grants for 2020 into 2021, the extensions, all that? I'm finding that very confusing.
So, so at the state level, we've created very broad parameters for each local cultural council to determine what they will approve in terms of grant modification requests. And so for each LCC that granted you an award, Rhonda, you will have to contact them. They might have contacted you already, but you should contact them with a grant modification request, and then they will proceed by having a council vote on whether or not the modification request fits within their revised parameters connected to COVID-19. And so, yeah, so maybe that's another thing that you and I can go through if you need more clarification. But there are cultural councils that have provided automatic extensions through December 21. There are also, approvals for projects that are being that are being hosted through a virtual platform. So there are a lot of different options that we gave to local cultural councils to decide. So it is dependent on each local cultural council, though.
Okay, thank you, Mina.
Sure, and the other thing that I'll say is fiscal year 20 grants. Those are just fiscal year 20 grants, even though they are carrying over into fiscal year 21. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Rhonda. Kat Knudsen has a question, so if she would unmute herself. And Mina, you're not clearing from the screen when other people talk, so I'm going to mute you for a second. You'll have to unmute yourself when you come back in. All right, is that, interesting. You're still not, oh, you've spotlighted yourself. There we go. All right, that's working now. All right, Kat, come on in and ask your question. Kat? Oops. Looks like we lost Kat between when she asked the question and when we got to her. Okay, any other questions?
Wait, did Kat type in her question? Oh, does the...
Oh, there she is. She's back. She's back. Kat? Yeah, she did. It was brief.
Yeah,
Kat,
I'm sorry.
Kat, go ahead and ask your question.
You should just read her question out, Den.
Yep, I'm done because I can see she's unmuted, but we're not hearing her. So hang on a second. Let me get back to it. Oh, there she is. Kat, can you Kat? All right, hang on. I got to go back and find it. Does the Creative Space host audio recording studios?
So I just checked, and it looks like it lists place to record, but it doesn't list recording studios. Are you looking for a recording studio, Kat? Okay. If you can give me your email address, I can get back to you tomorrow. Okay.
I'm also going to put in here 2 recent grants that were put out by NEFA, the New England Foundation for the Arts. So there's the collective imagination for spatial justice, which is more of like a processing idea imagination grant. And then there's the public art for spatial justice, which is a project specific grant. And you'll see, you can look through the eligibility criteria for both grant programs. You'll also see the contact information for the 2 staff members who are overseeing this. So it's Ken Sato, who is the program director of public art at NEFA, and Kamaria Carrington, who is program coordinator for public art. And they have a link on both pages for folks to sign up for office hours. So just wanted to put a plug in for them. And there are 3 different application deadlines. So August 24th, September 21st, and October 19th.
I'm going to start the survey for the end because we're starting to have people drop out. So please try and fill this out before you leave, and we can go back to questions and answers while this is going on. Okay. You should be able to see that now. And it should just be clicking the answers. We'll leave that up till the meeting is ended. Other questions? You can see some of the resources as well in the links in the chat. People have Mina has left some links. You can copy those out. These will all be saved, and we will make them available along with the recording and other resources. We will have that all available. If you're not already following us on Facebook or not on our email list, add yourself to those so that you'll know when they come out. We have been funded for bringing up our website too, and we'll be doing that shortly. Okay, good. People are starting to fill out our survey. I appreciate that. Chat here.
And thank you so much for to the New Bedford creative team for hosting us and organizing this workshop.
Well, we're very happy to. We hope that people are liking this. We have our other 3 previous workshops available on video on the web. The links are in our Facebook page right now, and they and all the resources connected to them will be on our website when that comes up. Again, we've just been funded for that, so we're still in the process of developing that, but it'll be available soon. No, Rhonda, the video won't be sent to you, but we will announce it on the Facebook page, and we will announce it on the email list. It's just too large to send it to anybody. It'll probably be 2 or 3 gigabytes of data, and there's no way we can send that to you. Other questions, other comments? And if you have comments or questions or suggestions for other workshops, please type them into the comments too. We will be saving the comment section. Or you can email them to contact@practicebestpractice.com. We will look at any of those as well. And we will add them to our list, and we plan to continue to provide as many of these as we can. We'll probably be looking at 4 or so a year. We are slowly losing our participants, as to be expected. Mina and Kelly, I think you guys did a great job, and thank you so much for putting this together and doing your presentation. I know that you will be available to some of these people. I see at least Mina has put her email in. I think Kelly did earlier, but it's starting to go by fast as we see thank yous. Oh, good. We're getting some workshop suggestions too. Budget, tax workshop. Yeah, those are things we definitely have on our list. And if you have specific things you would like to learn about that, detailed questions are good. They help us put together good workshops. Oops. Hang on a second. This one just went by that was, I think, more than a suggestion. Okay. Thanks, Ron. We'll talk to you about that. Does the Cultural Center have any plans to work on non-tax status for artists like Rhode Island?
I don't know what that means.
Rhode Island has a thing where certain areas of the state are non-taxable if you're buying art in them. So I think that's what they're asking about.
Yeah, the tax exempt, like cultural center areas where there's a lot of commerce. I think there had been some talk about that in years past, and I don't know where that stands right now, given the enormous deficit. I I would say I don't know. Certainly if we do find out more about that, that would go through our main agency's email newsletter. They're very good at informing the field of anything that's of interest economically to artists as it relates to what's going on up at the State House. So I don't have a lot of input in the State House activities. I'm dealing more on the ground with individual artists, but certainly that would be something we would put front and center if we hear more.
Okay, we're getting thank yous and more suggestions. So we'll leave things open for a few more minutes so you can continue to type in suggestions. The poll closed, it has a limited time. But thank you for the 22 people who filled it out. That will help us a bunch. We will report on that as well. We will add that into our info.
Can we say goodnight to Mina and Kelly now, Den?
So I think they've done their job and I really appreciate it. I'll touch base with you sometime next week just with a wrap up in the survey results and that kind of thing. I will also let you know because you're on the email list when the video is available, so you feel free to share it around as well. Okay?
That's great. I already had an inquiry from someone over at Emerson College wanting to share it. So terrific.
Yeah, we will make it available to anyone. We've got a couple of things that we have to set up first, and then we're going to collect all of them together and probably launch a YouTube for them, and then link that to our site. So, and seeing I am the majority of the staff here for that kind of stuff may take a week or two to get all of that together, but we'll get it together soon. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay. Folks are heading out. All right. All right, we're down to 8 people. I'm going to close out the rest of the meeting. Thank you so much, everybody.